Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Jade Alberts, and I'm back from the lake, and I'm ready to get back at doing my telling it like it is. I would also like to say thank you to everybody that shared the stories from the lake. It was one of my biggest shared broadcasts. I guess maybe it's because I was standing in the lake. I am not sure, but again, my name is Jade Alberts. I am a brand builder and a strategist that helps businesses grow and succeed. Sharing knowledge is why I started the Telling It Like It Is Facebook Live. It is a live show. If you have any questions, please ask them. If you see this on a rebroadcast on any of the platforms after, do not hesitate to ask the questions. They will get answered. Today's Telling It Like It Is guest is Devon Hamilton, founder of Playful Content. Devon, how are you today? And thank you for joining me.
I'm doing great, Jade. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, I know we've been talking about this for a while, and I'm extremely excited to talk to you about playful content, and I just want to show the people that we're talking about the Lego Foundation. I'm able to wear my Lego T-shirt to interview you. I'm pretty excited about that.
I'm really happy to see you wearing that shirt. I want one.
Yeah, yeah, it's a patent of Lego, and I was like, oh, that is a cool shirt. So, anyway, I mean, I guess I like talking about especially networking and how you and I met. And we met through the Community Now magazine function. I believe it was almost a year ago. So, I mean, how important that networking is and growing these relationships. And even our conversation a little bit before this was talking about, how important networking is.
It's what business thrives on is the ability to meet each other, connect, and it might not necessarily even be, so many people are used to it thinking about it. Oh, it's only one-to-one, right? Like you
Yeah.
only, you meet somebody and then you do something with them. And that's not what it's about. It's actually about meeting a lot of different people that enables you to build out the web of people that you can work with or that you can, more importantly, help and be a part of for wider organizations.
No,
And I think
absolutely.
that's a big part of how you and I have had our conversations.
Yep.
It's not been about business. It's actually been about life and the culture of the city of Calgary.
Oh, absolutely, and those are good conversations too, and then it obviously worked into you coming on here. So what I'll do is I'll give a brief little introduction about you, and then we'll get into the questions. So since
Okay.
completing his PhD in 2001, Devon has worked in STEM communication and education, both inside of museums and an independent consultant. He began as a senior scientist at the Ontario Science Centre, leading the content development for exhibitions, including ones that have toured internationally. In 2009, he came to Calgary to help build the new Science Centre, which opened up as TELUS Spark in 2011. Devon led the program and exhibits development teams as they created the new exhibition galleries and education programs, continued to lead them after opening through the innovative projects such as the outdoor park, the Brainasium, and programs such as the groundbreaking Direct from the Operating Room. Devon began his independent consultancy in 2015, working for not-for-profit organizations that were interested in building capacity and learning. Since then, he's worked in a diverse range of clients on helping to create new spaces in Calgary, helping to plan a children's museum in China, delivering professional development for ECE teachers in Belize, and with international team funded by the Lego Foundation, and working with a range of clients to help develop missions and strategic planning. One constant theme through Devon's work and collaborations is the emphasis on playful engagement to maximize learning and human development. And I mean, I say that, and that's just I mean, that's one of the things when we first met, I was just amazed by someone that can do that. I mean, when we go take the kids to Legoland, I just can't play enough with Lego, and it's such a fascinating background. So please share how you, decided to move that into an entrepreneurship with Playful Content.
Well, I've been working for about close to 20 years, primarily as a member of institutions, as part of whether it be at the university when I was working on my graduate work, or working with at different science centers, creating exhibitions, thinking about how people learn. And one of the challenges of working in an institution is that you start on something, you complete it, but you're still there. And one of the lessons that I learned, especially in my last few years at TELUS Spark here in Calgary, was I really thrive when I'm building something. And the opportunity to build is really, really attractive, whether it's physically building an institution, whether it's building out a strategy, building programs, or helping an organization build teams. That attraction to me is what led me to starting up my own business, Playful Content, because I saw the opportunity to really step out of just the envelope of working in one institution to work with multiple ones. And one of the things that I find fascinating is I've spent most of my career, really all of my career, involved in STEM communication. But lately, since leaving the Science Center here in Calgary, most of the clients I've had have not been traditional STEM learning organizations. I've worked with a number of not-for-profits in the city of Calgary, helping them think about how they are learning organizations, whether they're recreation centers, social not-for-profits. They often don't think of themselves as a place where people learn, but they are. So it's been really eye-opening for me. And before we went on, we were talking a little bit about diversity. And one of the great opportunities that this consultancy has provided me with is that opportunity to actually explore diversity a lot more. I've worked with some organizations that are really, really focused on new Canadians and newcomers to Calgary. I've also had the opportunity to work on some international projects that I never would have had before. So what's great about this is I actually am getting to learn an awful lot while helping other organizations focus on learning too.
Well, that's such an interesting concept that you're. I mean, we're always should be learning. Continuous learning is a part of everything, and I 100% agree that the diversity that is coming into the city is excellent, and we see that almost when you go to a rainforest meeting, when someone comes up there and there's a lot of new Canadians that are here that are saying, hey, I'm here, I'm an engineer, I'm ready to work, or whatever it may be, or I've started my new company, I'm looking for clients. But I mean, it is something that is starting to, define our city.
Yeah, I think it's something that escapes a lot of people's attention, particularly outside of Calgary. There's that stereotype of who we are as an oil and gas city, as cowboys. But, a lot of people don't realize that more than 30% of our population are new Canadians here, or first-generation Canadians, the children of immigrants who've come here. And they're primarily coming from non-European nations, which is great because we see this incredibly rich diversity across the city. And that diversity of experience, that diversity of culture, that diversity of perspectives is really feeding into some of that energy that we're now seeing on the innovation front. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I got engaged with an organization like Rainforest, because, I talk to people and they're engineers, they're computer scientists, they're programmers, they're marketers like yourself. And they're like, why is a guy who works in museums and learning here? And I go because I'm interested in innovation and the skills that we need for innovation. How do we develop those in our community? How do we develop that in our education system? How do we help build that capacity throughout our community to support the type of innovation that we need to diversify the economy here? Because if we don't do that, we're looking at a pretty rough future for Calgary. And we all know this, and we've heard this from our politicians and the economists for decades now, that Alberta needs to diversify. So diversifying into technology and into innovation is a really interesting direction for us to be going in.
No, absolutely. No, I agree. And I know a month ago, I really focused on, people, time, culture, and with you being able to, work through the Lego Foundation and basically all over the world, how have you been able to work this concept into some of your designs to, help people or companies learn?
That's always actually, I think, when thinking about culture in particular, organizational culture, as well as big C culture, thinking about that working with different cultures. That's always one of the key challenges that you always have when you're trying to help an organization strategically plan or think about long-term goals that they have, or their role within their community as a learning organization. All of those things connect back to the culture that organization has. And it's been the experience that I've had when working with, whether it was working with clients in China, or when it was working with some, with the Lego Foundation, when we were working with educators in Belize, we were often running into the questions around what is the cultural support that we have within these organizations or in these groups that we can rely on to support further activities and further growth. Because if you don't have the right culture, that's culture is the first step that you need in order to make some of those transitions. So, what is the nature of the organization? Who are they there for? How do they understand their how do they understand the community that they're trying to serve? What is the purpose? What are the outcomes that they're working towards as a learning organization? And to get to that point, you really actually need to focus on the internal culture of the organization. How are they what's the capacity that they have? How do they support asking those questions? Those are all crucial pieces in it. So it's never, and I remember having this conversation once. I was working with a client here in Calgary, an organization, and we were doing some work on mission and vision for them. And this is the path that we need to follow. This is something that's going to take us. We're going to have to do a number of different sessions, and you find the mission and vision that you want, that resonates with you, because we really need to help you understand what your internal culture is and how your place and role in your community. And that's not a we go to A and then to B and then to C and we're done. We're not going to do this in an afternoon. This is going to take time, and it took us the better part of a year to get to, after multiple sessions, to figure out their mission and vision. But in the process, we built a really much stronger internal culture, encouraging the staff and the board to think about, well, what is the role that we have in our community? Who are we here for? And for me, I began to notice a language shift in the daily conversation that their staff were having about why they existed. And they began to incorporate a lot more of that into how they related to their community and the relationships that they were developing. And so those are aspects of culture that you need to introduce always into your process to get you there in the long term.
No, absolutely. And that actually answered the next question I had, is how do people react and how do people move into that? So that's great. And I agree. I mean, if the people aren't buying in, and you have to work with what they have to make sure that you implement a successful strategy, because if they're not going to buy in, and you're going to walk in and try and change absolutely everything, I said you're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. And understanding that internal dynamic of people to get them to buy in, that's a big part of this process. So people and culture and how they fit together is really, really important, because if you've got the right people in terms of attitude, culture, behavior, you can always help build those skills. You can always help build that experience. You can always build that capacity. But you need to get the right people in place, and you need to help organizations understand, well, what does that mean, the right people? How do we foster? What are the things that we need to continue to do that fosters a culture of transparency, or a culture that respects diversity and the role that it has, or a culture that celebrates learning? And one of the crucial things about celebrating learning, and this goes back to thinking about innovation and the conversations we've had before, you cannot celebrate learning if you do not celebrate mistakes and failure. You have to create an environment that allows people to take risks, to make those mistakes, and to recover from them, because we actually only ever learn from mistakes.
Yeah.
All the things that you've ever learned in your life have probably been through making mistakes and reflecting back upon them. And so those are all really key parts of any of this. There's always a risk involved in this for organizations, and you have to work on helping organizations, and whether it be boards or staff, be those risks, be comfortable with trying things out, and making mistakes, because it's always better to make the mistakes early anyways, when the consequences
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm talking with Devon Hamilton of Playful Content. His website is up on the bottom there. Also, it's in the comment section. You can click on that. It'll give you a direct link to it. So I guess based on kind of what you just said, what type of clients would you be able to kind of, with Playful Content, step in and help out? Is it more board related? Is it, you said, nonprofit? Can you use your Lego Foundation to, relate to some businesses here in Calgary, or?
I have a really wide client base. Much of the work that I still do does intersect with science centers and museums. I work with, I have some based out of Toronto. We work with Design, where we focus on designing learning environments for museums, libraries, science centers, that sort of thing, at an international level. But I also do a lot of work with not-for-profits here in Calgary to help them primarily think about planning, but also to think about sort of capacity building and helping frame their some work with one organization to understand the meaning of outcomes and measurement and how they can sell a number they have running through their programs to thinking about the impact that their programs were having. But really always what motivates me to want to work with somebody in an organization, I'm kind of greedy this way, is the opportunity. So when I'm talking to clients, or like, well, I want to learn from you, and I want to continue engaging with different groups so that I learn new things. So I'm always kind of looking for those opportunities. So sometimes it's with private clients who are interested in facilitating team building, or trying to think through new ways to think through. Design-based learning and design-based thinking is kind of where a lot of the center of my work is. So how do we go about solving problems, or how do we develop your internal team? And this is something I've done with some corporate clients and other education clients. How do we help your internal team develop the ability to innovate, or the ability to some problem solve? Because there's an awful lot of organizations that talk about engaging with innovation and innovation processes, but they actually don't know where to start. And one of those starting points, as we were just talking about, is culture. How do you help create a culture and skill set within your team that allows them to be risk takers, problem solvers, collaborators? And how do you help structure your organization to support that sort of thing?
No, and I mean, and that's always something that should be worked on. It's just not, it's not a one and done type thing. It's something that needs to be done on whether it be a weekly, a monthly, a quarterly basis, however you want to structure your program in your company. That needs to be, stressed and relied on. So as people come and go, they're able to buy into the program, and you can grow the culture exponentially.
Yeah, it's going back to that idea of the flywheel. You have to start pushing on that flywheel, and sometimes it takes a long time to get that flywheel and get that momentum going. But as you begin doing that, and you see the shift in your organizational culture, you also then begin to see results. Teams working better solutions to the problems that you have, better relationships, both internally and externally. All of those things can follow through by taking these approaches.
No, absolutely. 100% agree. So I guess kind of to the last question I always ask my client, or the people that I'm talking with here, is, if you had one piece of advice for somebody who's starting up a business, whether it be an entrepreneur or somebody that's 2 or 3 years in, what would that be, Devon?
I think the one big piece of advice that I have for people is to talk to everybody. Have lots of conversations, engage. And I don't mean simply do the sort of standard networking thing, hand out your card and that sort of thing, but take the opportunity to learn from all of the other people around you. Take the opportunity to meet people, find out what it is that they do, but find out also why they do it. Look at what motivates people and build your understanding of both who your potential client base is, but also who your collaborators could be, and extend it even further. Like, think about it in a much more broad term as who is here for me to work with and learn from? Who can I help learn? Because that's where some of the more interesting partnerships and conversations and collaborations can begin to develop. You mentioned some of the work that I was doing with the Lego Foundation. And I followed a very circuitous route to arriving at working with the Lego Foundation on a project in Belize that, would not have happened if I hadn't just been engaging in conversation with lots of different people. And taking that opportunity to find out more about what they know or about what they're interested in or what their passions are. One of my favorite questions, actually, after some of these conversations is always to say, like, well, who else do you think I should be talking to about this? And don't think about it in terms of my business, but think about it in terms of impact and effect. I'm interested in it, in changing my community. Who should I be talking to? I'm interested in furthering the diversity of the economy in Alberta. Who should I be talking to? I'm interested in learning. Who should I be talking to? And it not just grows your network, but also grows your base understanding of everything that's going on.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I'm always up for that. And even yesterday, I had a coffee with a gentleman that somebody said, "Hey, Jade, you guys should just meet." And there was no plan of any business, no plan of nothing. And, and actually we're going to end up meeting again. The conversation was so good. It was an hour and a half. And again, that's something that, I've been, today I introduced him to a few people that he should talk to, that might be able to help him. And I mean, that's just how it rolls. And that's how you need to network.
That's where a lot of the value comes in. And I reflect back, there was a year ago, after one of the rainforest lunches without lunch, I met a guy who was working with a HR consultancy, and he was really interested in talking about the strengths and weaknesses. And we had a really interesting conversation that didn't help either one of us in our work directly. But what was interesting for me was through this conversation, it gave me a chance to reflect and think about, okay, so what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? And how do they intersect? And it helps me grow as an individual, but also as a person who's a provider of services, to be able to say, you know what, maybe I need to consider these sorts of things as I'm doing the work that I do. So you never know what you're going to learn or find through these conversations that you have with people. And it's a hard thing to do. I don't know about Jade. I don't know if you're an introvert. I am. So it's really hard for me to walk into some of those rooms and have conversations with people, and actually be able to open up those doors. And so for people like myself, that can be a real challenge, and we need to push ourselves and put ourselves out there to have those conversations, to begin to engage with all those other people, because it does really open up a lot of doors for you, both at a professional level, but also on a personal level as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that was, I'm extremely, this conversation went exactly how I thought it would. And I'm so grateful for you coming on today, Devon, and sharing your story and your knowledge, and especially talking about, content. And if anybody wants to find more information, please go to the comment section. Just click on the Playful content link there, and it'll take you right to Devon's website. You can contact him for more information. So again, Devon, thank you so much for
my pleasure, Jade. Thanks for taking the time this morning.
Oh, I appreciate it. And again, thanks everybody for tuning in. If you have any questions and you're watching this after, put them down there. Devon and I will get back to you. And until next week, everybody have a great day, and we will see you next Wednesday. Thanks again, Devon.
My pleasure, Jade. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.